true for COVID as well. So as we already mentioned, you have to keep the tidal volumes low, 4 to 8 ml per kg, plateau pressures below 30, and initial PEEP of at least 10 to 12. And it should be increased at the increments of 2 to 3 centimeters, provided that the PEEP plateau remains below 30. Patient who's COVID ARDS, you have intubated, is moderate to severe ARDS, you have put him on a ventilator 12 to 24 hours, you'll just wait. You'll optimize him, let settle on the ventilator. Don't start changing positions or doing anything to the patient just when he is ventilated. Because most of these patients are hypoxic by the time you intubate them, they remain hypoxic, and there is a very high chance that they will develop hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. Hence, the first thing is settle the patient, get his, give him optimal sedation and paralysis. It's very vital that the patient doesn't move at all in the initial 24 to 48 hours. If again, these patients may go into a little bit of fluid overload. It may not be heart failure alone. It could be non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema just because of the inflammation. So a little bit of diuresis will help in these patients. And if there are any severe pleural effusions, better to drain them. After this, you look at the PF ratio. If the PF ratio is above 150, you may continue sedation and intubation and continue the ventilator support with slow weaning. If the PF ratio is below 150, you have to paralyze and start proning as per whatever trials have happened. We'll be discussing the trials later on. So 150 is the ballpark figure that has been mentioned in most of the literature that is there. So PF ratio below 150, you have to be aggressive in terms of your recruitment maneuvers as they are called. Okay, now you have intubated the patient is, not responding as you say, so you decide what is not responding. Not responding is when the patient is hypoxia is not getting corrected despite your aggressive invasive approach. So that's called refractory hypoxemia. Now, refractory hypoxemia is basically hypoxemia that is not responding to conventional therapy. There is no universally definition, but it's a very practical thing. When your PaO2 is below 60, PaO2 FiO2 is below 100 or 150, depends on whatever you take as a cutoff, and an SpO2 of less than 88 with an FiO2 of at least 80 to 100% with a PEEP of more than 5 and a plateau of more than 30. This is predominant population of your people who patients who are getting intubated in our NESCO ICU for all practical purposes, because we are keeping a relatively higher threshold for intubation. But now that you put this in perspective, most of our patients are refractory hypoxemia. So refractory hypoxemia occurs is sine qua non for moderate to severe ARDS. ABG machine not working, but if the patient is having such kind of a picture, he is moderate to severe ARDS. Again, COVID-19 does not put any separate tenet to the management. Management is following the basics of ARDS management and antivirals. So again, you have to have permissive hypoxemia in these patients. Don't target a SpO2 of 100%. Go from 92 to 96%, provided the patient is comfortable and your vitals are under your control. So what do we do with such patients? You have intubated the patient, paralyzed the patient, you have put him on inotropic support, his vitals are under control, still is hypoxemic. What do you do? So this is a very good a cartoon which has been drawn up by the Surviving Sepsis Campaign and the Society of Critical Care Medicine. It basically, in a nutshell, tells you how to manage patients with COVID-19 and with various degrees of ARDS. So very clearly, a mild ARDS patient, the strategy is completely different. You treat the infection, you keep a low tidal volume, you keep a lung protective ventilation, empiric antibiotics, and steroids. We are concerned with moderate to severe ARDS patients because these patients slip from our hand. So you keep a higher PEEP, neuromuscular blockade, boluses should be there, patient should be arrested in terms of neuromuscular blockade, and strictly no movement of the patient should be there. Traditional recruitment maneuvers, if the patient is responding to your PEEP, then maybe tried on the ventilator. Prone ventilation, which is going to be now our main talk. Prone ventilation for at least 12 to 16 hours a day, even in intubated patients. And of course, systemic steroids, antivirals, antibacterials as and when required. Now, of course, ECMO and all these things are always recommended in these guidelines, something which is not really practical in our scenario. Hopefully, in the future, we may be able to do it. So, again, COVID-19, ARDS patients, what do you do? So, this is again a very good chart to keep in your wards. Patient comes to you, you start him on low flow nasal cannula, doesn't respond, go to high flow nasal cannula, doesn't respond, go to CPAP, CPAP doesn't respond, especially patients who are on high flow nasal cannula and CPAP, so-called stable patients, but still not maintaining saturations above 90, 92, you do awake proning. That is the second part of this talk. That is awake proning, which is much, much more helpful in this pandemic scenario than the more cumbersome ventilated patients who require proning. If these patients with HFNC and CPAP still do not maintain on awake proning also, then you go ahead and do invasive ventilation. On them, if they develop severe hypoxemia, then you go for, after neuromuscular blockade also, go for proning. And if after that also, if there is severe hypoxemia, you have no choice but to put these patients on ECMO and lung transplant. Okay, so now we come to prone ventilation in ARDS. Now, this is not a new concept at all. Prone ventilation has been there and has been talked about since at least 5 decades, 4 to 5 decades. These studies which I'm quoting here are just the things that are there. It's been there on the papyrus since years to go. So there have been quite a few people who have, because the numbers were so-called less. Dan et al., Peel et al., Douglas et al., all of them confirm that proning is definitely better. And why it is, we will discuss in a short while. But then there were never any trials, like you have nowadays, everything is based on evidence. We never had such trials up till 2013 when somebody actually decided to conduct a trial and prove mortality benefit. That is the reason why now today we have been pushing for prone ventilation, even in awake patients, is because there is mortality benefit in these patients. So how does proning help? Proning basically converts the disadvantage of gravity into its advantage by, improving oxygenation, improving respiratory mechanics. It homogenizes the pleural pressure, alveolar inflation and ventilation distribution. It increases the lung volume and reduces the amount of atelectic regions. It facilitates natural drainage of secretions through the natural orifice that is our mouth and oral cavity, and it reduces the ventilator associated lung injury. Now, how does this happen? It's not rocket science. It's just basic physiology. All of us have seen this particular diagram in our first year physiology textbooks. It is basically, there used to be a short note on the lung zones of ventilation and perfusion. All of us are very much aware of this. At the apex of the lung, the alveolar pressures are maximum. That means the air in the alveoli, the pressure in the alveoli, the oxygen in the alveoli is maximum. The pulmonary arterial pressures are in between and venous pressures are lowest. That means the oxygenation is max at the apex and the blood supply is minimum, and exact opposite is there at the base of the lung. Now, this is a two-dimensional diagram. Please be aware anteroposterior component to it. So in a body like ours, the lower lung fields, the basal lung fields are the zone 3. They are posterior and inferior. and the apex is anterior and superior. So what we are doing in proning is opening up the alveoli in the lower and inferior or the posterior aspect of the lungs, which basically are normally also the VQ ratio is. So we are trying to recruit the reserve into our advantage. Okay, the VQ at the base anyway is less because there is more perfusion, less ventilation. But normally it's not required because this is all our reserve. It's all our reserve that is there. But once our lungs get destroyed at the apex and the base, mid, we have to open up the base because that has a large chunk. So if you look at it in this way, this particular cartoon tells you when you are lying down supine, the heart and the heavy organs literally push a normal lung also. The if you see the if you see this, these are the alveoli which are normally getting compressed. And if you prone yourself normally, then the heart gets pushed below, the alveoli get pushed above. And that's why they open up. So if this happens in a normal phenomena, in an ARDS, it's a gift to us because all these alveoli get open up and we can use them for ventilation. As we can see in an imaging also how the heart gets pushed down and the alveoli get opened up in prone position. So there is something called as malignant atelectasis, which happens in ARDS because of the inflammatory edema, interstitial edema. Atelectasis begets atelectasis. That is because a patient lies immobile in supine position. All the zone 3 alveoli, which were anyway not opened up, get further destroyed. And as time passes, they become irreversibly destroyed. So proning at an early stage will definitely help in these patients. Okay, now this is all good. I mean, but how do you do it and how do you remember so much, especially in a COVID scenario? So we have this particular, it's a very good cartoon. It's a checklist, like the Americans like these checklists. It's a very good checklist. If you look from the top, you need at least 7 people for an intubated patient to be prone. Okay, you have one at the head end, that is the tallest, 3 people in between, and at least 2 or 3 people around to take care of everything. And you need one team leader. So you need 6 pillows, one bed sheet, a little bit of ECG dots to keep the ECG in place. Then one by one, you start deciding whether the patient is sedated and paralyzed, whether the eyes are taped and closed, is the nasogastric tube closed, is the anchor tied properly, urinary catheter disconnected. One by one, you go across. Then you turn in a synchronized manner and place at least two pillows at the chest, at the hip, and at the lower level. Turn the head to one side so that the ventilation is maintained. And generally, there is a face guard which is there on top of that you put. And then keep the patient like this for at least 2 hours, and then slowly shift him to the left lateral, then to right lateral, and then sitting up. So this is okay, but it is labor intensive. It is something which we have always been wanting to do in our Indian patients, but we have never had the manpower to do it. So it should be done, and it should be done in a systematic way. If not done, it can really cause more problem. You can extubate the patient, you can the lines can go off, or it can be much worse. So proning in an intubated patient is definitely challenging, but it can definitely show results. So this is how a typical prone patient would look like. The ECG leads are to be put on the back, and all the lines which you have disconnected, always the team leader's job is to ensure that quietly all the lines are put back in place. So of course it is not without complications. When you're going to keep a patient for 12 to 16 hours a day in one position, there is going to be unplanned extubation, there is going to be loss of vascular access, there are going to be pressure ulcers, could be God forbid, but retinal damage and crush injury as well. So all of these things have to be looked into. So coming to the more popular awake proning in the COVID era, it's called the COVID awake repositioning proning protocol, or the CARP protocol. So awake proning is basically an adjunct to normal therapy that you would give patients who are hypoxic, requiring NIV, requiring non-invasive ventilation, or nasal CPAPs. You can put them on an awake proning. The patients can themselves do it. It is something which can, prevent atelectasis in long-standing patients, as we are seeing nowadays in the second wave. The patients are requiring oxygen therapy for quite some time, weeks together. So, and of course, we have seen that once they are prone, the saturation goes up, the patient feels well, patient intends to do it much more, the compliance goes up. So it can be used on any level of respiratory support. And of course, the longer that you do it, the better it is. And requires a patient that is cooperative and of course with intact mentation. So this particular diagram was first, made popular by WHO, and it was basically done in US, and then of course subsequently every other country followed it. So what they say is that you need not more than 3 pillows, at least one at the level of the chest or just below it, one or two at the level of the legs, and one at the head end. You keep 30 minutes to 2 hours. So 2 hours is ideal, but most of the patients don't tolerate prone positioning for 2 hours at one go. So it's 30 minutes to 2 hours, first on your left side, then on your right side, then on your belly, and then you can sit up. And you keep doing this together about 12 to 16 hours a day. But then this is all good. But then there would be always people like this gentleman who would say, where is evidence? Who says that this is good? It may not be good. So there have been, thankfully, quite a few studies about proning ARDS patients. And there have been, the results have shown quite promising in terms of mortality benefit, oxygen reduction in the hospital stay. The most popular study being this particular one, which has ProSeva study in 2013, which showed mortality benefit. So that is something which is a hard endpoint in most of the randomized control trials that we look for. And once you have something which has hard evidence like mortality benefit, it should be made part of our practice. So now, keeping this in mind, where are we in India? So the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has brought out the COVID-19 proning for self-care guidelines as early as 1.5 months back. This task force has always been recommending this particular therapy to all non-intubated patients, even at home. And even with our experience, we are quite sure that this particular procedure is safe and it reduces the oxygen requirement drastically. And we can send patients off early. They can continue to do this at home. Our post-COVID care has improved in these patients. It is a PDF document which is available freely on the net. It can be shared with people. We can put it up later on also in the WhatsApp. It is a slide set of about 10 slides in plain, simple language explaining how it should be done. Of course, Department of Physiotherapy in KEM has brought out its own protocol for physiotherapy in these patients, which is in Hindi, in Marathi, and it's something which we have started giving to our patients, and we are seeing good results. So, of course, there is in COVID kind of a study they are ongoing, but then since we know that COVID is just the etiology, it's finally ARDS which needs to be treated. So I'm sure that with this we should be able to now get all our patients in the proning procedure as we should, and proning should become part of our clinical practice. The bottom line is that prone ventilation improves oxygenation, prevents the ventilator-associated lung injury, hospital-associated lung injury. It reduces complication and mortality, and more importantly, reduces the hospital's ICU stay. Patients with ARDS and severe hypoxemia can benefit from proning when it is used early and relatively long sessions. And awake proning should be the norm for most of the patients requiring oxygen as early as their first day of admission. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll take them now.
Thank you, Dr. Malav, for an excellent talk. And unfortunately, I think not many people could join. Maybe we should have it again today, some other time. And I had a few questions. Anybody else wants to ask?
Yes, I think ma'am has this connection is a problem. Anybody else has any questions? Then I'll take them now.
Can you hear me?
No, yeah.
Dr.
Yeah,
Malav, can you hear me? Okay, I think the screen went blank on my laptop, so I connected myself on the phone after that. So anybody has any questions amongst the participants? You all can unmute yourself and ask. Okay, what I wanted to ask was that I have seen that this CRP protocol, if the patients are very, very tachypnic, then they don't generally, they become compliant to doing it. So at such times, is it really necessary to forcibly ask them to do it, or should we just leave it to their level of comfort? That is number one. And secondly, are there any particular lobes which are involved which can cause which will in which the CRP helps more and certain lobe involvements don't, like for example if the posterior lobe is more involved, then it may, is it anything like that, or since it is ARDS it may be helping generally? I have seen that some patients after proning also worsen, and then they have to be made supine and propped up again, and then they improve. So how to decide which patients to prone, or should it be done for all?
So the first thing about ARDS, let's not talk about COVID. We'll talk about ARDS. So ARDS patients, COVID patients with ARDS are going to behave like any other ARDS patient. First thing about these patients is that they have to be comfortable on the type, the oxygen requirement has to be met with. So when you get a patient of COVID or ARDS, first thing that you do is that you oxygenate him. You may use whatever you require. I mean, if he's a severe ARDS, tachypnic patient, you have to sedate, paralyze, and intubate him. Okay, given the scenario where you have a pandemic situation, you may go for a non-invasive ventilation. So what they say is first 24 hours at least, you stabilize the patient. No proning, nothing of these things should be done to these patients who are unstable. Hemodynamically also, some patients may require dialysis. It's not possible. This proning maneuver is not something which is like, a Ramband thing. So it is something which you do for a long-term benefit. But the patient has to survive for that long term. So once you receive a patient in your EMS, or if the patient has just come to your ICU, patient is new to you, do not try this first. First thing that you do is make the patient comfortable, put him on a non-invasive, see if he remains non-hypoxic on a non-invasive, does not maintain saturation, continues to remain hypoxic, sedate, paralyze, intubate. Okay. Then after that, after intubation also, or after NIV also, 24 hours the patient remains as it is. The condition, the position that he is comfortable in. Once the patient is sedated, patient is comfortable, his plan is that he is going to require oxygenation, he is going to require a bit of hospitalization, all of that is secure, then you can start these maneuvers. So that is basically whether that is to answer to your question whether proning should be started upfront and whether you're right. What happens is that once a patient is prone, the actual problem that happens is, though in the cartoons and in the literature, if you see, it's very easy to put a pillow next to your chest. But actually, if we try to do it at home also, you don't want to keep the pillow there. You want to keep the pillow somewhere else. So the idea is that you first stabilize the patient and then you shift him to proning. And secondly, obviously, if you have a predominant lower lobe involvement, though proning may not always help, it is of no harm because it allows drainage of secretions. So the ventilation may not improve, but once you are prone, if that is the diseased area, normally also, if you look at it in 3 dimensions, the posterior lobes are actually behind and they form nearly 50% of your lung, both sides. So that is a large area of reserve. So if you are able to, get that out and remove it of the secretions, definitely you will see some improvement.
Yeah. Postural drainage.
Exactly.
I have seen some of the residents keeping the patient prone or left lateral, but the bed is propped up. I think that is something which needs to be avoided. Yeah. Should they be completely flat?
Absolutely. So, yeah. Yes.
So, first
rule of that you have
bed flat.
Yes, and only once he is prone, you may give at least in prone position, you give 20 to 30 degrees of, head up, but that is after the patient is prone. Yes. If he is left lateral, so what we found, at least what I find, patients being more comfortable, especially these patients who are tachypneic, and we cannot really intubate them because of lack of, the sheer numbers that they come in. You give them a left lateral or a right lateral, they are much better. Most of the pulmonary edema patients also prefer a lateral position than supine. So that is something which is a local jugaad that you can do, give them left lateral.
Left lateral. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions?
And of course, one thing which has not been mentioned here is, one thing which is more important is that many of these patients should not be volume constricted. If they are fasting or volume constricted, more importantly, volume, dehydrated, the proning worsens the oxygen saturation. Okay. Yes.
So that is something which we need to keep in mind, that the volume, yes. Volume depleted patients, first you have to take care of the intake output and then only make them.
And again, food 1 hour later only, after 1 hour of food only should you try all this. Yes. So it's a completely elective maneuver. It's not an emergent maneuver.
Yes. Okay, I think that's about it. If there are any further questions, you can ask Dr. Malav on the groups. And I thank you again for this talk. Yes. And I hope we can take it one more time for the morning batch. We schedule it once again. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Malav.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.